and welcome to another of Mrs. Patnell's maths lessons. We are dealing with time this week, so we are going to look at analogue clock faces. We're going to have a little look at months of the year, and we're going to talk about the o'clock times as well. But before we do, we're going to have a go at counting, so I'm just going to tilt the camera here so we can see the 100 square. So, in order for us not to forget our numbers, we are going to have a go at counting to 100 in tens first of all. So when we're counting in tens, we're just interested in this column on a 100 square, all the numbers that end in a 0, because they are all multiples of 10, okay? So they're the ones we're interested in when counting in tens. The reason why it's so quick to count in tens to 100, starting from 10, is because we're adding on 10 each time. So we're not saying every number, how we do when we're counting in ones. We are just saying the ones and then adding on 10 each time, and that's why it's so super quick. So let's have a go. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So quick, isn't it? Let's do it one more time. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Fantastic. I think let's go and do it in fives as well, actually, where we're adding on 5 each time. So it's not as quick as counting in tens, but it is still pretty swift to get to 100. So when we're counting in fives, we're interested in this column that all end in a 5, and we're interested in this column that all end in a 0. If you've got your 100 square at home, it really helps to colour in those two columns. It helps you to count to 5 and get counting fives rather, and get used to saying the right numbers. Okay, so counting in fives, starting from 5, we're going to use our funky tune. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. Fantastic, well done. We won't count in ones today because we've done quite a bit of counting. I am thinking in the future, not too far off, teaching you how to count in twos, from 2, where we say one number, jump over the next and say the next number, jump over the next and say the next number, because you're adding on 2 each time you count. So we'll look at that in the near future. Okay, so you can have a practice of that if you want to be super ready for it when I do it. Right, let's have a go at talking about numbers that are 2 more than my number, okay? I was going to do this in a catch one partner way around the classroom, where you have a number and you go up to someone and you ask them, what is 2 more than my number? But as we're all at home at the moment, we can't do that. So I am going to point to a number on my 100 square and say it, and then I want you to tell me the number that's 2 more. So you can, of course, have a look at my 100 square and jump on 2 and tell me the number that's 2 more. So if I say the number 15, what's 2 more than 15? You could use the 100 square to help you by jumping on 1, 2. So 2 more is 17. 2 more than 5 would be 2 jumps on, 1, 2. So 2 more than 5 is 7. If you are feeling super fabulous and you think you don't need the 100 square, then close your eyes when I point and just listen to the number I say, and then work it out in your head what would be 2 more. That'd be an extra fine way of stretching yourself. Okay, so first one, if you don't want to use the 100 square, close your eyes. What is 2 more than, let's warm ourselves up, 2 more than 4? So if you're closing your eyes, hopefully you have said 2 more than 4 is 2 jumps on number 6. Okay, I'm going for another one, so close your eyes if you want to do it without the 100 square. 2 more than 8. 2 more than 8. So hopefully you have said, if I jump on 2 jumps, 2 more than 8 is 10. I've added on 2 numbers and I've got to 10. Okay, 2 more, close your eyes if you don't want to see. 2 more than 12. 2 more than 12. Okay, you've jumped on 2 jumps, 1, 2, so 2 more than 12, you've landed on 14. Right, next one, 2 more than 17. 17. 2 more than 17. Hopefully you have jumped on 2 jumps and said 19. Well done if you did that with your eyes closed. I'm going to go a little higher up to 100 square for those of you that are really happy with your numbers at the moment. So close your eyes if you don't want to see it, but 2 more than 35. 2 more than 35. So hopefully you have looked, or you've decided in your head, or you have used the 100 square to jump on 2 more, and you think that 2 more than 35, 2 jumps is 37. Okay, let's go a little higher for those that want stretching. 2 more than 39. 2 more than 39. 2 more than 39 would be 1 more, and then I have to jump all the way over here for 2 more. 41. It takes me into the next lot of 10s. Okay, well done with that. If you got those right, don't worry if you struggled with the bigger numbers. It's fine. You can work up to those. It's absolutely fine. Okay, let's pop our 100 square down now and have a look. If I tilt my camera again, do excuse my kitchen. It's actually being refurbished while we speak. So have a look at the back of this here. Hopefully you can see this poster. I think you're doing it on a big screen, so you should be all right. You should be able to see it just fine. But we have our months of the year. So we're going to have a go at singing our months of the year and really, really try and pay attention today, because tomorrow's lesson is going to be focused on the months of the year. We're going to be talking about seasons and which season the month belongs to. So I've got a nice story for you tomorrow on months of the year. Okay, let's do our months of the year song. Remember, there are how many months in the year? 12 months in the year. Okay, are we ready? January, February, March and April, May, June, July and August, September, October, November, December. These are the months of the year. Now, we have just slipped into a new month just over a week ago. So now we are in February. And if you can see this picture fairly well, if you're on a big screen, you'll see it's got snow on the trees. That's absolutely right. If I look out my window now, my garden is covered in snow. So this poster is very right about the weather in February. We can still have snow. But in a few weeks' time, when we creep into March, we can expect to see buds on the trees. How exciting. Right, okay, so let's move on now to our times, okay? So in particular, about times on an analogue clock, okay? Now, when I say an analogue clock, I'm just going to tilt this camera a little bit. When I say analogue clock, I mean a clock that looks like this, okay? And you'll have seen these, certainly you'll have seen this in our classroom, up on the wall. And this is an analogue clock, one that has the numbers usually in a circle shape around the outside of the analogue clock face, okay? So this is my big analogue clock, and this normally sits on our math shelf in the classroom, doesn't it? And we have a little play of it because it does move from a special turny knob at the back here, okay? Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about times on an analogue clock. I'm only going to talk to you about o'clock times because they are the easiest ones to deal with at the moment. And even that actually is sort of teetering into year 1 stuff. So that's really stretching yourselves to talk about o'clock times. Now, let me talk about the face on the clock first. It has 2 hands, okay, on the clock. We tend to call these hands. Ours are very handily in blue and red, but you might notice, and especially if you've got a clock there in the room with you at the moment, have a look at it. It's not often that you will get 2 different coloured hands on a clock. They're often just black hands. So you have to remember that one is longer than the other. So if you look at my red one, my short one, it doesn't really cover the numbers, does it? It's just pointing at the very beginning. But if you look at my blue hand, my longer one, it completely covers the number. It's that much longer than my red smaller hand, okay? So even though yours won't be in 2 colours on your clock at home, you will have a longer one, a longer hand and a shorter hand, okay? These analogue clocks always do. So the long hand is telling us how many minutes are going past, okay? So that's what the long hand does. So that, and you can see when I move my special knob at the back, that moves a lot quicker than the red one. Look at the red one. It's slowly creeping only between the 6 and the 5, because I'm going backwards here, aren't I? But the blue one
is going so much faster. Let's go this way because that's the sensible way for a clock to go. So look how slow it's taking my red hand to travel onto the number 6 when the blue one's nearly gone all the way round. So the minute hand moves a lot faster. That is ticking away the minutes, okay? The smaller hand is telling us what hour we're on or we're coming up to, okay? So the hour hand will move much slower than the minute hand, okay? There are 60 minutes, 60 like a cup of tea, 60 minutes in 1 hour, okay? So this hand will move around 60 of these little gaps here on the clock as it goes round, while this one just moves from one number to the next one, okay? So this blue one will tick around 60 minutes when it just takes the smaller red one to move from one number to the next, because that's a whole hour going round, because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So we are just looking at o'clock today. So when any time is o'clock time, the long hand, or indeed our blue long hand on this clock, will always point straight up to, and I'll just move it so you can see it, the number 12, okay? The number 12 is at the top of our analog clock. So when the time is something o'clock, the big long hand will always be on the 12, okay? So if you remember, when your arms straight up like this, so the hands of a clock straight up like this, and you can do this with your own arms to make you remember, when the hands of a clock straight up like this, the long hand, it's always o'clock. All right, so try and remember o'clock and straight up, okay? So the long one, straight up, is o'clock. Then you have to look at the shorter hour hand to work out what o'clock it is, okay? So the long hand, straight up, it's something o'clock. Look at the red shorter hour hand to tell us what o'clock it is, and we can see it is 6 o'clock on this analog clock, okay? So it's kind of nice o'clock times. The long hand will always be pointing straight up to the 12 o'clock. The shorter hour hand, you then just have to look to see what o'clock it is. So if I move it round like this, that blue hand going much faster than the red hand. So if I move it around like this, we can see that the blue hand, the long blue hand, is going straight up. So it's something o'clock. Then we have to look at the shorter hour hand to see what o'clock it is. It is 8 o'clock. Okay, so it's very simple, the o'clocks. You should get quite used to them. The only things we often do is get our shorter hand mixed up with our longer hand. So just remember, the long hand is the one going straight up for o'clock. All right, so what about if I show you this time? There we are. Oh, we've got the long hand pointing straight up, so it's something o'clock. The shorter hand is hiding behind it, so it's also pointing to that top number 12. So it must be 12 o'clock. So you'll have both of the arms pointing straight to the same place when it's 12 o'clock. Okay. Now have a little think while I'm taking a little sip of my tea. Have a think about what you might do on a normal weekday, so a school day, at 12 o'clock. What do we normally do around 12 o'clock? You might need to get some help from the adults in the room there with you. But around 12 o'clock, we are normally washing our hands, maybe having a story, because we're just about to have school lunch at about 12:15. So we're getting ready for lunch normally at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, okay? So we're just washing our hands and having a story, about to eat those lunches. Okay, let's think about what we might do. And things are a little different at school, even when we're back at school at the moment. So things like break time and stuff aren't quite as clear as they used to be. So let's say, what do we do at about this time? What time have we got here? Our long hand is pointing straight up to the number 12, so it's something o'clock. Look across the shorter hour hand. It is 3 o'clock. So what would we normally do at 3 o'clock? 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a school day. Now, considering we go out to the car park to be picked up at 3:15, so 15 minutes after 3 o'clock, I think right about now we're probably getting our bags ready. We're having maybe a song or a story at the end of the day. Perhaps we're doing compliments of the day for the star of the day. And we're just getting all our stuff ready to take home about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What about if it was coming round, moving all the way around the clock? Look how fast that minute arm is going. What about at this time in the morning? So our long hand is pointing straight up, so it is something o'clock. Let's follow the shorter hour hand. It is 9 o'clock. What are we normally doing on a school day at 9 o'clock? Let's have a think. So 9 o'clock in the morning, someone's come out to get you already at the car park at about 9:15, at 15 minutes before 9 o'clock. So around about this time, we are settling down, we've hung our bags up, we're doing the register, finding out what we're having for lunch, and possibly having a morning activity like bingo or number of the day or some cutting skills. So that's normally what's happening at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, let's think about if we moved to o'clock at night. So I'm going to go backwards a bit for this. I'm guessing for this, because everybody can have a different time for this, but let's imagine it's this time in the evening, okay, or at night, okay? So you have o'clocks in the morning and you have o'clocks that repeat themselves at night. So we've got our long hand pointing straight up, so we know it's something o'clock. Let's find out what o'clock it is by looking at the shorter hour hand. It is 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock at night on a school night, what might you be doing at 7 o'clock at night? I'm thinking probably a lot of you are in bed under the covers having a bedtime story, or maybe you're brushing your teeth or putting on your pajamas ready to be in bed around about this time. We all often have slightly different bedtimes, but I think probably we're all at least getting ready for bed, or we are under the covers having a bedtime story at 7 o'clock at night, okay? So reading the time is excellent for helping you work out what it is you should be doing at this point in time. So we know when it says 7 o'clock on your clocks tonight, with the long hand pointing straight up to the 12, saying it's o'clock, and the shorter hour hand pointing to the 7, you know you probably have to be under the covers or brushing your teeth ready for bed. So it's very handy to be able to tell the time to know what you should be doing at that point. Okay, so we'll talk more about o'clocks as well this week. Let's pop that over to one side. Now, those of you that I knew were going to be at home this week, I posted out a big picture of an analogue clock face to you, and this was for this lesson. So I've got one here that's just the same as yours, and this is what I wanted you to do for the lesson. I wanted you to snip it up like a jigsaw puzzle, okay? So it did once look like a nice analogue clock face, but now I've snipped it into triangles and squares and rectangles of sorts. And that's for you to then work on putting it back together, so you get used to knowing where the numbers appear on an analogue clock face, okay? Which ones are at the top, which ones are directly underneath at the bottom, which ones are out to the right and the left. So that's what this came home for you for. Now, those of you that we didn't realise we'd be at home this week, you haven't got one, so apologies for that. I didn't get a chance to send one out to you. What you could do is, if you've got a printer at home, you could go onto a website, particularly like Twinkl, so that's Twinkl without the E for mums and dads. They are bound to have a free analogue clock face for you to print off. If you haven't got a printer at home, it's fine. You might be able to find a picture of a clock, maybe in a catalogue or a magazine that you could snip up quite possibly, or it's quite easy for an adult to draw you one quickly, putting the numbers in the right place and then snip that up to be a jigsaw. So don't worry that you haven't got this analogue clock face. There's many ways you can do it yourself to do this final activity. Okay, I'm just going to show you what I want you to do, but then after the video, have a go with your own clock face. So I've got all these pieces here, just like a jigsaw, and just like with any jigsaw, I'm going to turn them all up the right way so I can see the pieces. Okay, that makes life a lot easier. Now I've got my two hands here. See how much longer that one is, the minutes hand to the shorter hour hand. I'm going to leave those off till the end, and then I'm going to get you to put an o'clock time on yours at the end using those. So I'm going to look at this clock face. Now, I very sneakily do have my analog clock here to help me, but you may be doing it without one to help you. So I do know that the number at the top of the clock is the number 12, because when it's o'clock, the hands point straight up to the number 12. So I know that he must go at the top. So I'm going to place him there at the top, okay? Now if 12 is at the top, 12 is the biggest number on the clock face. So it's going to start with the number 1 after that, because it doesn't go any higher than 12. So if I find the number 1, oh, I've got 1 and 2 on this piece, and I slot that in next to the 12, okay, because I know 12 is the highest number, it will then start with 1 again going back round. So 1, 2, what comes after 2? 3. Let's look for my piece with 3. Here it is. Slot that in there. Ah, my clock face, my analog clock is taking shape. So I've got 1, 2, 3. What comes after 3? 4 comes after 3. It's 1 more than 3. Here's 4, and I've luckily got 5 as well. So I'm going to slot those in together, 4 and 5. So at the very bottom of the clock, directly under the 12, what comes after 5? 6. So I know if I slot 6 in there, 6 is at the bottom of an analog clock, straight down from the number 12. So that's quite handy to know. What comes after 6? 4, 5, 6. Aha, 7 is 1 more than 6. I've got 7 and 8 here. I got lucky. So I'm going to slip those in there next to that. So I'm now starting to come up around the other side of the clock. I want to know what's directly opposite the number 3. What's 1 more than 8? I'll know what comes here. 1 more than 8 is 9. Here's my number 9, and I've also got 10 as well here. I'm going to slot that in there. So I can now see that number 3 is on this side, directly opposite the 3 is 9. So that's helping me work out where these numbers go on a clock. So I've got 9, 10. My one number that's missing must be 11. I also know that 11 is 1 less than 12, so that definitely fits in there. And there is my analog clock face. Now I can put on my hands. Now I want you to have a go when you put your clock face together. Your adults can tell you lots of o'clock times to make, okay? I'm going to finish by putting mine on 9 o'clock. So for 9 o'clock, my long minute hand, if it's o'clock, must point straight up, remember? So using the spot in the middle, I'm going to place it straight up, and it's even covering the number 12. It's such a long hand. So that means it's going to be something o'clock. Now I want that something to be 9 o'clock. So my smaller hour hand must point to, for 9 o'clock, the number 9. There it is. So my analog clock is saying that it is 9 o'clock. So when you have put your own analog clock face together, adults, can you ask lots of different o'clock times and see if the children can place them in the right place? Remember, the long hand is the minutes hand, so if it's o'clock, the long hand will be pointing straight up. Your shorter hour hand is the one that tells us what o'clock it is. Okay, pop stuff on tapestry, because I love to see how you're doing with your first adventure into the o'clock times. And I will see you again tomorrow when we have another lesson on time. Take care. Bye-bye.